Local officials installed by Russia said the temporarily captured town of Nova Kakhovka was under heavy artillery fire. The Russian-backed local government said on Telegram on Saturday that the town of Nova Kakhovka in southern Ukraine temporarily occupied by Russia was under heavy shelling by Ukrainian forces. The shelling left the town without power, Russian-installed officials announced, citing emergency services. Officials' statement urged residents to stay in shelters. Work to repair the damage and restore power will begin immediately after the end of the shelling. According to the Russian-installed government, Nova Kakhovka was reported to have witnessed massive explosions that left the city without power. CNN could not confirm which targets may have been hit. Why is the town important? Dear, Nova Kakhovka is home to an important hydroelectric project on the Dnipro River. Back in November 2022, Vladimir Leontai, a Russian-installed official in Nova Kakhovka, alleged on Russian state television that the Kakhovka hydroelectric plant had suffered huge damage as a result of being hit by Ukrainian forces. Shelling and repairs would take at least a year. On April 25, Southern Command spokesman Natalia Humanyuk said Ukrainian defense forces had shown fairly strong combat results in the southern axis over the past 3 days. Ukrainian defenders destroy about 13 to 20 pieces of invader equipment every day. 2. Ukrainian military intelligence warns residents of Crimea to stay away from military facilities for the near future. The Military Intelligence Service of Ukraine's Defense Ministry urges Crimeans to stay away from military installations following a near-day oil depot fire caused by a drone attack in Sevastopol on Saturday. Calling the fire Bavovna, which means rage in Ukrainian, Andriy Yusov, a representative of Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Service, said the fire is God's punishment, especially for the civilians killed in Yemen. Yusov was referring to the Russian missile attack on an apartment complex in the central Ukrainian city of Yemen on Friday that killed at least 23 people. This punishment will last, he said in an interview with Ukrainian media on Saturday. All residents of temporarily invaded Crimea should not be near military facilities or logistics facilities for the aggressor's troops in the near future, he added. Yusov claimed the fire destroyed more than 10 oil product storage tanks with a capacity of 40,000 tons. According to Yusov, the oil products are intended for use in Russia's Black Sea Fleet. The Russian Defense Ministry has not commented on the incident. However, the Russian-appointed governor of the city, Mikhail Razvozhev, said the blaze, which has now been extinguished after more than 18 hours of raging, was the result of a drone strike. He said only one drone reached the oil tank and another was shot down. He added that 4 fuel tanks were hit but no one was injured. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview published Saturday that Ukraine was preparing for a counterattack, but declined to say when that would happen. He has repeatedly pledged to liberate Crimea from Russia. Moscow announced the annexation of the peninsula in 2014. 3. Ukraine shuts down Russia's power grid in the city of Belgorod. Newsweek had an article titled "Ukraine Knocks Out Power with Attack in Russia" report, which means Ukraine attacked to shut down the power grid in Russia. The Ukrainian military's shelling reportedly left several Russian villages along the border between the two warring nations without power on Saturday. The reports originate from the Belgorod region of Russia, located just northeast of the Kharkiv region of eastern Ukraine. During the intense conflict that has lasted for more than a year, Belgorod has regularly suffered attacks due to nearby military fighting. Vyacheslav Gladkov, governor of the Belgorod region, first reported the blackout in his official video. The village of Novaya Tavolzhenka was shelled by Ukraine today. The power line is broken. In addition, 4 other villages near Novaya Tavolzhenka lost power due to shelling, Gladkov added. Work is currently underway to restore electricity to the villages. Gladkov noted that, according to preliminary information, the shelling did not result in any deaths, although he did not mention possible injuries. Damage was also done to a number of private homes and buildings in the area. There was severe damage in a private household. A bullet hit the courtyard of a new, uninhabited building. In addition, 10 private households also found various damage. Facades were destroyed here and there, fences and windows were cut. Power lines are damaged. Residents of the villages of Arkhangelskoye, Shahmino, Zhibrovka, Murom and Novaya Tavelzhenka remain without electricity. District head Vladimir Zhdanov, emergency services and on-site operations continue to check around the territory. In the near future, the team of electricians will begin restoration work. The Belgorod shelling coincided with an overnight drone strike that set Russia's fuel depot in Crimea ablaze. A peninsula located in southern Ukraine, the Crimea region was annexed by Russia in 2014 amid heightened tensions between the two countries. The move was widely condemned internationally and very few countries recognized the peninsula as Russian land. Like Belgorod, Crimea has suffered numerous attacks since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine starting last February, most of which Russia blames Kyiv. Images from the scene on Friday showed a huge plume of smoke blanketing the Kazakya Bay district during the day. Russia's state news agency, TASS, reported that the blaze covered about 21,500 square feet or 6,553 square meters. Fourth, powerful cannons arrive in Ukraine as devastating attack ravages the country. Newsweek had a report titled, "Powerful howitzers arrive in Ukraine as devastating attack hits country," which means, powerful cannons arrive in Ukraine as a devastating attack ravages the country. Ukraine on Friday announced it had recently received Caesar heavy artillery from Denmark and the artillery systems had been put into service. Ukraine looks set to strengthen its military capabilities with the arrival of the French-made Caesar 155LY self-propelled artillery systems. The announcement came after Russia launched a large-scale missile attack across the country. At least 25 people were killed and dozens more injured in what is believed to be the largest attack by Russian forces on civilian targets in more than a month. An airstrike that destroyed an apartment building in downtown Uman was particularly severe, and the regional governor said at least 23 people were killed in that attack. The capital Kyiv was also attacked for the first time in 2 months. Officials reported that air defenses downed 21 of the 23 missiles launched by Russia and a pair of drones. No casualties were reported in the capital, Kyiv. Today, the Danish Caesars have arrived. And they were on combat duty. This is the level of cooperation between Ukraine and Denmark, Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov said at a press conference on Friday. Samuel Romani, an assistant professor of politics at the University of Oxford and a collaborator at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, called the arrival of the Danish Caesar's howitzer an important impetus to the rebellion of Ukraine on Twitter. Newsweek has reached out to Ukraine's foreign ministry by email for comment. The Caesar, or Camion équipe d'un système d'artillerie, is a truck-mounted 155mm howitzer. A guidance system that allows the weapon to fire powerful projectiles with a range of approximately 25 miles with long-range ammunition or 34 miles with smart ammunition. Mihir Zainalov, an editor at the Defense Post, told Newsweek that Caesars could be behind the range of Russian artillery, making them very difficult to detect and hit. They are also very accurate and can change position very quickly and avoid Russian forces pinpointing their position and counterattacking. These batteries have been key in slowing Russia's advance on many battlefields over the past year as Ukraine has been able to attack Russian military and logistical facilities deep within the supply lines of equipment. Essential for Russian combat forces on the front lines, Zainalov said. Reznikov did not say how many Caesar howitzers had been delivered to his country, but Denmark pledged in January to supply Ukraine with all 19 artillery systems it had ordered from the French manufacturer. Denmark also said it will send Ukraine 80 Leopard 1 tanks by the end of 2023 and a total of 100 along with 14 Leopard 2 tanks, sent in cooperation with the Netherlands. Ukraine already has a number of Caesar howitzers in its French-supplied arsenal. Last year, France gave Ukraine 18 Caesars and promised to give 12 more in January. If there is a single reason why Ukraine did not fall despite all-out Russian attacks, it is because of Ukraine's NATO-level artillery force, including Caesar howitzers, Zainalov said. There is no doubt that the artillery batteries supplied by NATO to Ukraine have changed the game in this war, and the French Caesar cannon is the most powerful part of this fleet. 5. Zelensky says counterattack will happen, but not ready to say when. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview on Saturday that a much-anticipated counterattack against the Russian military was being prepared and will happen. There will be a counterattack, Zelensky said when speaking to reporters from Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. We are preparing for that. It will happen. Zelensky said he is confident in the success of the mission and that we will be able to liberate our territories. But the Ukrainian president said he was not ready to say in detail when and how that will happen. Ukraine still needs certain types of weapons, he said, and the main risk for his military is whether it has the ammunition it needs. Weapons are decisive in times of liberation, says Zelensky. Ukraine has made extraordinary efforts to conceal the start of its strategically vital counterattack. Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar announced last week that the counterattack would not be announced. Much of the focus of recent speculation has centered on the southern region of Zaporizhia, where Kiev's forces may try to encircle Crimea, which has been annexed by Russia from invaded territory in eastern Ukraine, and mainland Russia. 6. Research shows that Iranian drones deployed by Russia in Ukraine are powered by stolen Western technology. New research has revealed the extent to which Iran has built a powerful weapons industry based on Western technology and how that technology is being used by Russia against Ukrainian cities. The Conflict Arms Research Organization, or CAR, a UK-based organization that investigates weapons components, has determined that the Shahid-136 drones Iran sold to Russia is equipped with engines based on German technology that was acquired by Iran nearly 20 years ago. This finding, made through a detailed examination of components recovered in Ukraine and shared exclusively with CNN, highlights Iran's ability to imitate and improve military technology that the country is not familiar with. This was obtained illegally. Western officials are also concerned that Russia could share Western-made weapons and equipment recovered on the Ukrainian battlefield with the Iranians. So far, there is no solid evidence that this happened. However, relations between Tehran and Moscow have grown much closer. Russia wants Iranian drones and ballistic missiles, Iran wants Russian investment and trade. According to Iranian officials, Russia has become the largest foreign investor in Iran over the past year. And for the Russians, according to Western officials, the Iranian drones are a very inexpensive alternative to much more expensive missiles. A Shahid-186 drone costs about $20,000, a fraction of the cost of a Caliber cruise missile. 7. Former NATO commander warns the U.S. is about to run out of ammunition as the Ukraine war drags on. Newsweek had an article titled "Ex-NATO commander warns U.S. running low on ammo as Ukraine war drags on," which means former NATO commander warns U.S. is about to run out of ammunition as the Ukraine war drags on. Former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe James Stavridis warned on Friday that both the United States and Ukraine are running out of ammunition as Russia's war drags on. Stavridis wrote in the Bloomberg op-ed published Friday that Russia and Ukraine are experiencing shortages of ammunition, electronic components, precision-guided weapons, and even cement amid the war. Shortages could be exacerbated by problems in the global trade supply chain, which, according to Stavridis, are starting to manifest. Ukraine was supposed to launch a spring counterattack against Russia and continuously received military support from the West to defeat the Russian army, including advanced equipment, tanks, and artillery. In January, Stavridis said that the Leopard tanks that Germany sent to Kiev could benefit Ukraine. Stavridis said he was worried a decade ago about the possibility of a conflict with Russia, adding that while Western allies have advantages and inventory capabilities, Russia has industrial facilities, shipments or capable raw materials, and the labor required to operate the machines in their factories and manufacturing plants. Stavridis wrote in his editorial, "Ukraine's enormous demand is creating challenges in supplying supplies for combat operations to a degree that I did not anticipate. Demand for electronic components in particular, to make precision-guided weapons, sophisticated drones, anti-ship cruise missiles and so-called smart artillery shells, is growing." Despite the sluggish global economy, civilian companies are competing with Western militaries for key semiconductor chips, especially high-end ones made mainly in Taiwan. Loan. Cement is another product that is becoming scarce, according to Stavridis, as Ukraine needs reconstruction while the war drags on. The country also has high demand in the United States for infrastructure projects that will be implemented under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. There are predictions that other products may also run out of stock, such as guns, rockets and ammunition, especially artillery shells. Stavridis also warned of a severe shortage of skilled firearms workers. Notably among the dwindling stockpiles is the 155mm artillery shell that has emerged as an important offensive punch for the Ukrainians. Some analysts believe that, within a month, Ukraine is burning through the total annual U.S. production before the war, Stavridis wrote. The former NATO commander continued, although the Department of Defense will continue to protect its own war stockpile, the excess levels of weapons, stocked for contingencies beyond the basic needs of the NATO allies. America's war plan is very low. And it's not just artillery shells. For example, the high-performance HIMARS missile is also in short supply. According to Stavridis, Western countries must guarantee contract production so that defense companies do not dissolve if the war suddenly ends. While there will be some constraints in specific global trade supply chains, e.g. electronics, building materials, some minerals, the overall capacity to manufacture far outstrips the economy. Russia's wobbly economy is obvious. Assuming China continues to wisely refuse to provide Putin with a material lifeline of war, Russia will fall further and further behind the West's manufacturing capabilities, Stavridis concluded. He added, this classic American way of war was successful both during World War II and, ultimately, during the Cold War, keeping the odds in the Ukrainian favor. Newsweek has reached out to the Russian Defense Ministry by email for comment. 8. Putin ordered the construction of museums across Russia dedicated to the heroic invasion of Ukraine. Putin has ordered the construction of museums dedicated to commemorating events in the war in Ukraine, the Kremlin said on Friday. According to a statement from the Kremlin, museums will be built across the country that will showcase the events of the special military operation and the heroic actions of the participants. Putin has set a year-end deadline for the heads of the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Education and Science to report on the progress of the gallery's implementation by regional and municipal governments. Duty. The Ministry of Defense has also been directed to determine which artifacts are suitable for display at these museums. On February 24, 2022, Putin launched an all-out invasion of Ukraine and started Europe's largest land war since 1945, and the Kremlin went to great lengths to control the situation. Story. The draconian news censorship law targets any media that still operate outside of the Kremlin's control, and most independent journalists have left the country. Meanwhile, the digital Iron Curtain has been reinforced, blocking Russians' access to Western news and social media sites, and authorities have arrested thousands in a crackdown on protests. Anti-war. The Latvian-based Meduza newspaper, run by Russian anti-Putin journalists, believes that Putin is copying Soviet-era communist figures who want to be celebrated personally as heroes, when in reality, he is internationally wanted. 9. The Russian-made governor said the fire at the Sevastopol fuel depot has been extinguished. A massive fire that started at a fuel depot in the Crimean port city of Sevastopol early Saturday morning was completely extinguished after 18 hours of fighting the blaze, said the governor of the Russian-backed city, Mikhail Razvozhev, said on Telegram. Razvozhev, who claimed that the fire was the result of a drone strike, said only one drone could reach the oil tank and another was shot down. The attack was recorded at 4 a.m. local time. According to the governor, no one was injured in the fire. He said in an earlier video that 4 fuel tanks were hit by bullets. Over the past 6 months, there have been frequent reports of fires and attacks on Russian-invaded Crimea and Sevastopol, the largest city and main naval base of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. This was the latest in a series of attacks on Sevastopol, the main naval base of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. After previous attacks on Sevastopol and other regions, Ukrainian officials have not publicly claimed responsibility, only saying that Ukraine has the right to strike any target in response to Russian aggression.